Hello, hello. Greetings, friends. It's another Chapo coming at you this Monday afternoon. It's me, Matt, and Felix. And in a little bit, I will be discussing corruption in Afghan mining contracts with the journalist Zack Kopplin. Before we get there, just some regular Chapo business to attend to. So let's kick off today's show with, I think hopefully a new feature on the show. It's Zoo Report. That's right. We're reporting on the animals at the zoo. Felix and I went to the Bronx Zoo on Friday, and we've come back with some interesting animal facts. I'm afraid Matt could not attend our day outing to the zoo as he is banned from all wildlife preserves, zoos, circuses, and things of that nature.
Look, is it a crime to try to dose the elephants with LSD so that they can escape? If so, lock me up.
There's a photo of him at the ticket booth, and it says, "Do not let this man into the zoo. Do not let him into the Bronx Zoo." All the apes get too damn horny when they see him. So, Felix, what did you make of the zoo? What was your favorite animal experience on Friday? And are there any animal facts that you would like to share with our audience?
I feel like the best thing we saw was the two gorilla kids playing.
That was wonderful.
Awesome.
They were sort of roughhousing. They were doing a light scrapping with each other. But the best part of it all was that it all kicked off when one of them just took a giant armful of hay and just splashed it on the other's head, and he was running around with a little cap of hay, just throwing hands at his brother.
Well, gorillas love hay. In captivity, they seem to hang out with hay and do a lot of hay tricks. There were some things I found artistically interesting. There was a monorail portion that me and Will rode, and everything on the monorail was pretty cool. We went past this one part of the zoo that is three different types of African deer that were hanging out.
Asian deer, I believe.
No,
I think they were Asian, to quote the cable guy.
I don't know. I forget, but there were also
they were very cool deer species.
Yeah, they were peacocks walking around them too. But then a few 50 feet away, right under the monorail, there was a red panda just living alone under the train tracks.
He was like a houseless person. They have this red panda, and he's literally living under an overpass, a monorail overpass, and they're
He's playing a harmonica.
Yeah.
he's cooking beans over a garbage fire.
Yeah, that's the Coleman Francis of red pandas. It was. I feel like you have to have a better setup for that. They love playing with each other, so you need at least one more, and you should make them live there.
They were coming up on your right. If you'll just look down, you'll have about a 1 second window to see the red panda that lives under the monorail.
Yeah, no, it's everyone loves red pandas. They should have played a bigger role. I feel like it was probably enrichment day or enrichment time when we went. So we missed a lot of animals the gibbons. We missed a lot of famous monkeys and apes, but we saw a lot of lemurs, which was great. Everyone should love lemurs.
On the monorail, they were I'm sorry today, you'll not be seeing our Siberian tiger, but make sure to go over to Tiger Mountain to see some of our Malaysian tigers before you leave. Went over to Tiger Mountain closed for the day. Bronx Zoo,
you guys got totally ripped off.
I will be seeking a refund.
That's when I was a kid, we went to Universal Studios and the Jaws ride was broken.
That sucks.
Oh, that sucks.
That's the whole fucking point of going to Universal Studios.
I do want to hold myself accountable for eating too many chips at the zoo. Don't think it can happen to you, but then it does.
All right, so let's talk about I have not seen this yet, but apparently everyone is talking about this new ad produced by the CIA that is quite something. Or it's they're I wouldn't say they're going in a new direction for the agency, but it's just sort of the central intersectional agency is, I think, what they're attempting to pivot to now. So I have not seen this ad yet, but should we watch it now and just let's see if we can take this on. Let's see if I can process this.
I've got a 42-second version and a 2-minute version. Do you want the long cut or
Let's get the long cut.
Yeah.
Okay,
let's
all
do the
right,
whole
all right.
thing.
The CIA director's cut, the Snyder cut of the CIA ad.
Yes,
All right, let me just share this.
the Carlucci cut.
Here we go.
When I was 17, I quoted Zora Neale Hurston's How It Feels to Be Colored Me in my college application essay. The line that spoke to me stated simply, I am not tragically colored. There is no sorrow dammed up in my soul nor lurking behind my eyes. I do not mind at all. At 17, I had no idea what life would bring, but Zora's sentiment articulated so beautifully how I felt as a daughter of immigrants then and now. Nothing about me was or is tragic. I am perfectly made. I can wax eloquent on complex legal issues in English while also belting Guayaquil de mis amores in Spanish. I can change a diaper with one hand and console a crying toddler with the other. I am a woman of color. I am a mom. I am a cisgender millennial who's been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. I am intersectional, but my existence is not a box-checking exercise. I am a walking declaration. A woman whose inflection does not rise.
I believe
at the
she's
end of
walking
her
by a
sentences,
portrait of Alan Dulles
suggesting
right
that a
now in this
question has been
hallway.
asked. I did not sneak into CIA. My employment was not and is not the result of a fluke or slip through the cracks.
Okay, no, there was a photo of her shaking hands with Gina Haspel in one of the little montages here.
I am educated, qualified, and competent. And sometimes I struggle. I struggle feeling like I could do more, be more to my two sons. And I struggle leaving the office when I feel there's so much more to do. I used to struggle with imposter syndrome.
Oh my God!
I used to internalize misguided patriarchal ideas of what a woman can or should be. I am tired of feeling like I'm supposed to apologize for the space I occupy rather than intoxicate people with my effort, my brilliance. I am proud of me, full stop. My parents left everything they knew and loved to expose me to opportunities they never had. Because of them, I stand here today a proud first-generation Latina and officer at CIA. I am unapologetically me. I want you to be unapologetically you, whoever you are. Know your worth. Command your space.
That's
wow.
I mean,
Wow.
okay, I gotta say, so
Okay, that was
I don't
good.
know why people are like especially pissed at this one because it's like, I don't know. I feel like this is hilarious.
It's great.
Obviously. And it's also like, well, the CIA isn't like, they didn't become more evil by doing this. It's like they're equally bad whether it's Angleton or like somebody who has to huff in a bag when they get quote tweeted. It's still the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, like
Does
people
the same job.
Yeah. People get so much like psychic damage from like, you know, reading completely earnestly into like a CIA PR piece, and it's like this one seems pretty easy. Okay, where does the CIA always get its people from? Elite universities.
Yep.
What do
Ding.
people at elite universities talk like now?
That's
Yeah,
it.
There you go.
That is all of it. It is, you got to have a fucking college degree to work for the CIA. And the type of person who goes to college and then works in the public sector has a certain vocabulary that they absorb and that they identify with. And so this is an appeal to them. This is how you get the next generation of college dipshits to fill out your ranks.
Is it would it like, okay, I understand like they're using all the language of these like, you know, sort of like striving specifically minded lunatics, but like, isn't the main hurdle though the fact that like if you've ever admitted to doing drugs you can never be a CIA agent? Like I remember like the FBI when they were trying to recruit hackers couldn't find a single person who doesn't smoke weed.
Yeah, and then they just fired some people, remember, the Biden campaign because they said, yes, I've done weed on their fucking applications. Like,
That was
genius.
awesome.
I just want to point out like just two things I picked up on in this commercial is like she's like it's like the woman, the narrator is like walking down one of the corridors at Langley past like oil paintings of like the former directors like fucking Richard Helms and fucking Alan Dulles. But then when
she walks by like a framed case of William Casey's kayak.
But and then in one of the photos, like in this sort of photo montage, it's like of her, you know, becoming a case officer or whatever. She's right there shaking hands with Gina Haspel, like the torture fucking lady, like the lady who like was the architect of like the CIA's torture program, or one of them at least.
Yeah, and
so
then
that's
covered
good.
the whole thing up.
Yeah.
Okay, but speaking of covering things up, I did notice that one of the most repeated bits of pablum and drivel that was in this ad is that she kept saying, I will not apologize for who I am. I will not apologize for the space I command. And then she kept saying, I will not apologize, like the guy with smallpox in Deadwoods. I apologize. I apologize. I apologize.
I apologize.
Shut the fuck up!
So it's like, yeah, it's just like this is the CIA is not going to apologize for being intersectional or any of the coups and torture that they've done.
Yeah, that's the thing. It works at both ends of it. If you're ambivalent about joining the CIA, this gives you reason. It's like you don't have to apologize for working for the CIA because they're pursuing good goals, which include employing you and giving you something to do.
Yeah.
Which is the same thing as social justice, because if it's totally individualized, if there's nothing, if everybody is really out for themselves because we live in a racist patriarchy that doesn't allow for anything other, then your advancement as someone who's oppressed is progressive, and it makes the organization progressive.
Yeah. No, this is. I mean, I would love to think that the CIA is now populated by just like the most fail-brained millennials who like just can't fucking process anything, are just debilitated by any number of anxieties and depressive maladies. But I don't know. I feel like they're able to steal themselves.
But as you said, even if that were true, Felix, it wouldn't make the agency like any less like evil or effective at what they do. Like, because like the individual personalities of the people working in it kind of don't matter. They're part of the Borg now. I mean, they're part of a system and an institution that has prerogatives that are like above and that exist independently of the people who staff it.
Right. I think your takeaway from this, like, if any, should just be like, oh, it's the same thing, but this is funny. Like, they're not. I just fail to see how they're more evil doing this. Like, of course, they're like using this like sort of bullshit academic language. Okay.
Well, I think that's the thing, is for a lot of people, this academic language means a lot to them, and they think that it is definitionally what it is to be a radical or a socialist or a leftist, whatever thing they value as their political self-identification. And then seeing it in the mouths of the CIA cheapens it. And so that is why they're so horrified by it and have to like extra condemn it, because they're uncomfortable seeing, oh no, this stuff can be used by the fucking CIA. That's not fair. You're cheating or something like that.
I will even go farther. Like if you're like into that type of presentation, the like spaces and stuff, like, I don't know. You know, keep doing that. Don't get down on yourself. If you really like it, like, it's like, yeah, everyone's gonna co-opt everything. I don't care about it, but like, hey, you know, I don't stop looking at paintings because George Bush likes them. You know, I look at paintings every day. But I mean, like, yeah, no, I thought the amount of psychic damage caused by it. I mean, A, people got to get outside. B, you got to jack off before you start posting every day. That is for sure.
Another interesting thing I picked up on in the ad was the invocation of imposter syndrome, which I think is funny because, like, given the CIA's history of literally creating duplicate human beings to sort of like reverse engineer narratives, you know, like the two Oswalds, the two George H.W. Bushes. I mean, like, it's a common tradecraft thing of having these doubles exist everywhere. So I just love the idea of like imposter syndrome being fit into like a sort of tradecraft that involves the creation of actual imposters and duplicates.
Yeah, I guess that's, you know, MK Ultra was a mass gaslighting.
I mean, literally.
The taking up of spaces thing is hilarious because it's like, yeah,
you said like, command spaces.
Or command
I will not
spaces.
Apologize for commanding spaces.
Yeah, but it's like yeah, didn't Mossadegh exist in a space? Like, you know what I mean? Isn't Patrice Lumumba trying to be in a space? Well, yeah, I don't know. I for me, I would put the entire CIA video in like my my Monday laughs column that I write for USA Today. But it caused a lot of anguish with people.
Yes. And
that it
hey,
should not
as
have.
long as it's got people talking, hey,
Yeah.
that's what it's all there for.
Yeah,
That's why even if this is just about mostly, honestly, about recruiting college kids, it's also a psyop because everything the CIA does is by definition a psyop. It's great.
Yeah.
What did we learn, Palmer?
I don't know, sir.
I don't fucking know either.
All right. Well, let's. Why don't we talk about another area, another institution of American life who is also having trouble hiring people. I'm talking, of course, about service industry restaurants and sort of local bar and grills. I'm just reading here. This is a Business Insider says here, as labor shortage is forcing chains like Subway and Dunkin' to cut hours, close dining rooms, and push employees to work harder than ever. It says here, fast food chains are keeping dining rooms closed and cutting hours due to a lack of workers. Some employees who have been hired are working extra hours, resulting in more mistakes and burnout. Quote, everyone is struggling to keep stores open from lack of staff, said a Subway franchise. So, I mean, what's going on here? And then this is filtering down from giant national chains like Subway and Dunkin' to, the locally owned bar and grill. And the owners of these restaurants, which are like small restaurants, like family owned restaurants, are like those people are like the cardinals, the archdukes of small business tyranny. Like that is like the small business tyrant mindset is the local bar and grill owner and the way they treat their employees.
Mm-hmm.
But like they're very tight right now because of COVID. Obviously, their labor pool has received a stimulus check and unemployment benefits from the government, a stimulus check and unemployment benefits while COVID is going on. And they're complaining about the fact that they're having this labor shortage because they're finding that many of the people that they would normally be hiring to do a job for like $11, $12 an hour are simply finding that they are getting by just as good, if not better, being on unemployment than working a job at, Shooter's Bar and Grill. So to that end, there's an article here from The Dispatch. It's titled, We Just Can't Do This Anymore. Business owners who want to hire workers are finding it impossible to compete with the pandemic relief package's enhanced unemployment payments. This is from Waterville, Ohio. It says here...
Waterhead, Ohio.
On a typical pre-pandemic Monday morning, Dale's Diner would be buzzing just down the hall from Hall of Framers and next to the local hardware store. Next to the local hardware store at the heart of this 2-block downtown. Dale's is a much younger sibling to Dale's Bar and Grill, founded in 1926. Still, the diner has become a community institution in the 10 years it's been around. The local history society meets here. The high school football team often comes for a big meal before games. A big meal before games? That doesn't seem right.
I guess carbo loading? I don't know. I never really did sports.
I don't know. The local... on this Monday, however, one day after Easter, Dale's is empty other than the couple who owns it and a journalist who is curious about why they announced its closing 2 days earlier. As we chat, a steady stream of would-be customers who hadn't heard the news paused to read the announcement on green paper posted on the front door and windows facing the street. Each visitor met with an apologetic shoulder shrug from Liz. Over the past year, Dale's struggled through the pandemic, completely closing for 2 months before Ohio allowed for limited capacity indoor dining in late May, shedding about 25% of its overall revenue, a loss that left it profitless even with the help of 2 cash infusions from the Paycheck Protection Program. Unemployment benefits extended and elevated through the pandemic are keeping would-be applicants away. The $1.9 trillion COVID relief plan passed by Congress extended the $300 federal payments to unemployed workers through September 2021. The calculation is simple. Many low and unskilled workers can make as much money not working as they could with a job, sometimes more, so they stay home. So, it's just so there's a labor shortage because employers are finding out that they're just not they're not paying their fucking staff enough money to do these jobs.
I don't understand. You should want to get out of your gaming chair and for your own virtue, you should want to go and get yelled at by Bud Cort from Heat all day. When you could be staying home. That's what human virtue is because work is virtue.
Yeah, this is... So I've enjoyed this one because it's like... Well, it seems like people finally hit their breaking points with these jobs. These jobs systematically keep people in a
and they have the ability to do so because they have some money that they can.
Right.
They have an alternative to being compelled to fucking work there.
you think about how these companies treat these jobs, and it's like everyone's kept in a part-time position, so they don't have to meet certain obligations to them. They're underpaid. They're forced to work at a moment's notice for very shit pay. And the way that they tried to dress it up after having them do the exact same shit during the pandemic, making them be the only people who have to go to work who have to wear a fucking mask for 8 hours on their fucking feet, was to call them heroes and then really do nothing further. Yeah. And it's like, this is exactly what these companies deserve for this. But it has been funny because, for the last 2 years, you've had these like Republicans who write these books that are like, Grand Worker Party, the populist future of the GOP. And it's like, they have instantly folded. Because it's taken them more than 5 minutes to get a Dairy Queen treat. Yeah, they now want Great Lakes pillheads to be impressed into servitude.
Yeah, we got to create a Corvée labor system, going door to door to get people to fucking work the fryolator.
Yeah,
you pass out of your but like they might make this into like prison labor soon.
Yeah,
like every day when the doors open, the fucking bus from the jail shows up.
No, man, it will be like the gang press system where it's like, you're in Ohio. You pass out at your friend's house. The friend who you think stole your headphones. You wake up and you're shackled to you are now at His Majesty's Fuddruckers, and you're chained to the fryolator under the cruel overseer Captain Bligh or something like that. But you speak about the Republicans and their attitude on this. Look who shows up giving a quote in this piece. "We wanted people to stay on unemployment rolls and stay home," says Michael Strain, director of economic policy
real
studies.
Strain hours.
And Arthur F. Burns, scholar in political economy at the American Enterprise Institute. But why would we want to, with the pandemic receding, vaccinations increasing, the economy opening, do the same thing? This is Michael Strain, who you may remember from such articles as "Call Me Mister, I Insist," an article he wrote for the Washington Post demanding that everyone refer to him as Mr. Strain rather than Mike or Michael, especially young people.
It's cool that if you spend enough time in a think tank, the Washington Post will let you write your DDLG fantasy in the op-ed section.
I love the names of some of these restaurants here. It says Paul Ruiz, owner of Where Ya At Seafood, just across the inlet. And he goes, he's going like the business owners in Ohio, Ruiz and Rudsky say the generous government benefits are the primary impediments to hiring. You can't incentivize people not to work, says Ruiz, a longtime Air Force veteran. You need to have incentives to get people to work, not to stay at home. You've got the hard workers who want to have a job, but the others need that motivation. And by others, he means the vast majority of every normal person alive.
Yeah. It's
under propagandized, basically.
Well, people always overestimate individual cash payouts from the government. They're not disability payments. Most of this stuff is really not enough for most people to live on. But obviously people think it's more than it is. But, even if everyone was getting $500, $600 a week, which they're not, these are always the people who demand everyone learn what economics is. And it's well, if there's a labor short, if you can't,
it's interesting how that works.
Demand cannot, if you supply and demand of labor is not intersecting, what are you doing wrong here? No, it's someone else's fault.
Yeah, no, left unsaid in all of this is the idea that they could staff these jobs if they paid more. But then these people would tell you if I paid more, then I couldn't keep my business open, meaning me as a business owner couldn't profit from running Where Ya At Seafood. To which I say, I don't know, have a better business. What do you want from me here?
It's not a human right to own a restaurant.
Yeah, and exactly. And what these people are demanding is that the government create, quote, incentives to get people, to Shanghai people back into the fucking, busboy
and
jobs.
Their preferred incentive is just the market, which we can pretend is some totally neutral force. Hey, that's the market rate. Sorry, that's what you get. But when you do something like raise the amount people get in from the dole or whatever, it changes their equation, and you realize how much of that really is up to us. How much people feel compelled to work is up to us. It's not just the fucking market. We can turn the knobs and make jobs more or less remunerative and more or less exploitative.
Yeah. One thing I hope, 50 years from now is that we are able to look back on how we treated service jobs and people in those positions and be amazed that people in our time treated them the way that we do for so long. But it makes me hope now that there's so much trouble filling these jobs that maybe more people will recognize how terrible these jobs are to have, how much they wear on the lives of those who have to do them.
I mean, and also especially that like restaurant worker is one of the highest risk jobs you can have for terms of like contracting COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I just one last quote here. This is a Representative Mike Gallagher, Republican from Northeast Wisconsin, says that while the problems aren't new, they're becoming more urgent. I can tell you this. The single most consistent thing I have heard from Wisconsin businesses of any size, small, medium, large, in any industry, ag, manufacturing, tech, for my entire 5 years in politics is this. Our biggest problem is finding workers. We cannot find workers with the basic skills who can pass a drug test and who are willing to show up to work. And I love it. Like, okay, who can pass a drug test? Like, oh, what? You need to have clean piss to fucking mop the floors or whatever.
Shit? It's like, it's another thing if they won't submit to my system of control. What the fuck?
Exactly. And then who aren't willing to show up to work. And it's just like you don't think employers are part of that equation in terms of like what people are willing to endure, or people who might just willing to make the rational decision that I would prefer to be, desperately precarious and impoverished rather than having to submit myself to make not that much money, or certainly not enough money that would make a difference in your life, to the, to the whims of fucking Mike Gallagher and the shitheads who fucking piss in his ear moaning that they can't find enough workers to do the awful jobs at their shitty businesses.
And the insistence is because this is a low skill job, it should have a low wage. But in a system where we can control like how miserable work is, you got to consider that the big misery of service industry work and food industry work more than anything is dealing with fucking customers. And there needs to be a fucking premium on that for anybody to want to do that shit, because that is where everybody gets to be a petty fucking dictator.
Yep.
When they're goddamn, there's no pickles on their fucking McYummyburg.
I remember when I had a job working like customer service, and like very early on in it, I was sort of like dumbfounded by how angry people were, and just like the abuse that they would just heap on you because the $5 trinket manufactured in China that they ordered like next day shipping arrived broken. And it's just what involvement do you think I have in this fucking process? But what he said to me always stuck with me. He said that Will, under capitalism, consumerism is like what we give people to vent their rage. Yeah. It's like the only acceptable way that like the people are allowed to like be angry and exert power over other people.
And
it was like once you're on the hook, no matter how fucking trivial the transaction is, the person at like the point of service is subordinate to you, no matter who you are.
And that's one of the big reasons that consumerism is one of the big dissolvers, social solvents of class solidarity, is because it gives everybody a taste of being the boss. And in a world where you don't really see a lot of options for advancement, just that little vacation of power, it's seductive, and it alienates you from people who have to do those jobs, and you start creating ideas in your head about why they have it coming.
Yeah, well, it's a bipartisan system too, because for generally how it's been for a while is for more right-leaning people, the worker is the person you scream at, take out all your rage on. You get to be a boss. That's part of the perk of going to a restaurant or whatever. For more liberal-aligned people, what it's been traditionally, and they'll get into the other thing a lot, but is that they're totally invisible. You get to work in your mind a job that like a real person has. You're a fucking creative director or whatever bullshit. You're a graphic designer.
The knowledge economy.
Right. And you don't have to go to work in an office during COVID. You have basically enough to get the creature comforts and little trinkets that demarcate you as a real person. But everyone who's like doing your grocery shopping or working at your restaurant, they're just not a real person. Even if you're an Uber driver, they're right in front of you. They're an invisible person. You just choose to block them out like you do if you live in San Francisco or New York, and you just see rows and seas of miserable, suffering people who are homeless. But they found a way to add the first thing to the more liberal interpretation of it, where like you can fucking complain about the guy who does your grocery shopping.
Well, yeah, the male Instacart shoppers thread is the perfect example of that. It was like, all the
I've
people
seen that. It's not just that thread. I've seen that multiple times about like how bad male Instacart shoppers are, and it's like, you have a servant, like whether you want to admit this or not. Like that's what this is.
That's the number one appeal of the entire that entire sector of the economy now to people is delivery drivers and shit. Is that you get to have a servant without having a servant.
Exactly.
You get to have the
There's no
experience
personal
of a
relationship,
servant without the anxiety, the social guilt of directly employing somebody in that kind of intimate setting. So you get to treat them, even though they're your fucking servant, as actually no, he's a Mayo boy who's messing up my my fucking order because of his toxic masculinity.
What? I'm sorry. We need to teach men how to listen. Fusilli pasta is not the same as macaroni pasta. Okay.
I saw someone say, "Train your staff." Like, what the fuck do you think this app is, lady?
They're not
There's no staff. That's the whole point. There's no training. There sure shit is not any fucking training. They just say, hey, do you have a phone that can download this app? Okay, if you can get to this place and pick up these things in the next 20 minutes, you get $5. And then they go and run and do it. That's it. It's just dangling a fucking bill in front of somebody's face.
And if you do get groceries on the internet or get shit delivered to you, especially during COVID, it's just like, look, I'm not trying to like rake you over the coals for that either, but like it's just like, especially now under COVID, like, don't you feel a little bit guilty? And if it doesn't come to you like exactly as you specified or like wanted it to, can't you just let it go?
Yeah,
and still tip generously? Like, I mean, like, just like an acknowledgement of like, just like how your own sloth is being indulged by like the convenience of like these apps and things like that.
Yeah, when I like really hurt my back in January, and I used these a couple of times, and it's like, yeah, I guess sometimes like they like one or two things wasn't there, but it's like when you go to a grocery store, they don't always have every single thing you wanted. Like it's not this person. If your brain automatically goes to like this person fucking up, like I don't know what to tell you, and it's like, yeah, no, this. But this, I mean, like, is not a company with employees, really.
But doesn't this kind of tie back to like the Central Intersectional Agency ad that we just saw, where it just sort of like, oh, the problem is not this like, horrendous system of like Matt said, like, servitude and like sort of digital serfdom that, you're able to take advantage of. And as Matt said, you have the convenience of having a servant with none of the guilt of like the personal relationship of like an upstairs, downstairs sort of social.
You don't have to worry about longing glances through window panes.
Yeah, exactly. But now your anger at like your servants being like restive or undisciplined can be communicated in the sense of like men just don't listen to women. Yeah. Or like if you're a CIA agent, you can command spaces and control bodies, shall we say? But you're doing it because you'll never feel like an imposter again because the agency's like also read Langston Hughes and
it's empowered you. It empowered you to live your truth.
Well, there we go. I think we should transition now over to our guest interview for the day. Another chock full episode for you. Okay, now we're Zack Kopplin, everybody. Okay, joining me now is journalist Zack Kopplin to talk about a piece of investigative reporting he did about corruption in Afghan mining contracts. And Zack, I want to begin with, when we ponder the last, 20 plus years of the war on terror and the motivations for why America fought these wars or continues to fight them, oil is often brought up as a reason and a motivation for like, no blood for oil and things of that nature. But as Afghanistan now officially winds down America's official military involvement, what are people missing about Afghanistan? People point to that as like, oh, well, that's a country that doesn't have oil. Why was America there for 20 plus years occupying that country?
Yeah, so Afghanistan traditionally was associated with heroin production. But during actually the Soviet invasion, the Soviets had done an incredible job mapping mining deposits in Afghanistan that weren't really used. They had identified what were theoretically trillions of dollars of minerals. So in about 2009, 2010, there was this Pentagon group. It was a little bit weird. It was called the Task Force for Business and Stability Operations. And it was kind of like it was a little pet project of David Petraeus's. And in Afghanistan, they hired a Russian speaker who basically went through all of the old Soviet maps, and then they went and confirmed them with their teams and realized there was the low end estimates are $1 trillion of minerals in the ground in Afghanistan. High end is upwards of $3 trillion. And that's gold, copper, lithium, which is, again, if you're going to talk about electric cars, you need lithium, chromite, which is made for stainless steel, which is what I've been looking at, and precious gems. Really, there's a ton under the ground there. And so that has been a motivation for large American firms in the last decade, and American politicians, including Trump, was very interested in Afghan minerals.
So there's this Defense Department group, the Task Force for Business and Stability Operations?
Yep.
Okay, so like, what was their remit to like operate in Afghanistan? What was their goal? What were they trying to do, and what did they accomplish?
So theoretically, they were supposed to create jobs, and they were operating in Afghanistan and Iraq. And actually, you'll find it funny, Pete Buttigieg worked for them at this time. But
was that why he was in Afghanistan for like the month or whatever that he spent in country?
So he hasn't ever said, but if I had to take a wild guess, because there's been the little tidbits, like he had that map of Afghanistan minerals.
Yeah, sure. That's the profile of him that said it like in his living room or his study. He had this huge, like very detailed map about Afghans' mineral resources.
And he said a few little things that kind of hint that he was involved with the natural resources team. So presumably, but we don't. I mean, again, basically this group was kind of, they were all wild cards. So basically, the Pentagon went and hired a bunch of business people to like promote Afghan cashmere and like to promote mines and to go look for a little bit of oil. And they kind of at the beginning they did what they wanted. And actually, the minerals group was especially interesting because they seemed to think of themselves as special forces. So the person, there's this woman, her name is Emily Scott King, and then she met her husband over there, this guy Mark King. They got married, and he was like a special forces reservist, and they were actually like living on a special forces base inappropriately. They apparently, according to some of my sources, had like unregistered weapons, and were kind of, the way they saw themselves, at least according to my sources, were like doing special operations missions.
Married to minerals.
Yes, very little oversight, and this kind of culminated in their premier project was out in Kunar province in Afghanistan, where they were hanging with some of the special forces team. Said, "Hey, we've got these buddies, this guy Mohammed and his deputy Farhad, who run what's called the Afghan local police, which is basically a militia group, pro-government militia. And they've been buying all these minerals, and they'd really love to sell them, but they need to crush them first." So these guys they spent $3.8 million and brought in a mineral crusher onto a NATO base where they were the U.S. military.
They were processing ore with $3.8 million in mining equipment on a NATO base, and it was like they gave this mining equipment to essentially local warlords so that they could not just take chromite out of the ground, but they could process it into a product that would come to market at a much higher value than just the raw like material, right?
And it's actually more absurd. Right after I published my piece, someone sent me a Twitter post by an ex-Special Forces guy who was reminiscing on his time in Kunar, where he was talking about bringing the same task force team out to one of these mines, which was Taliban-controlled. And apparently the Taliban were mining because they didn't have mining equipment. So they were shooting artillery at the rocks, which you get about 50% breaks up in a portion you can go bring to your crusher. The other 50% is aerosolized.
Yeah, they need better loss prevention if that's the way they're mining.
Well,
but you bring that up though. But there's
serious carcinogen.
Oh wow.
Like,
okay.
So not great. Really bad.
Well, so
go ahead,
there's a very funny phrase that keeps turning up in your article here, and it's artisanal mining, which is a phrase that I've never heard. And it lands funny because like those two words you don't normally associate them. But what does artisanal mining mean and involve?
Yeah. So this it's funny to me too. It's actually a trade term, but when I write it, I'm like, it's a little bit weird. Basically, it's stuff that's not done by a real process. So the artillery mining is an example of this, or mining basically a guy with a pickaxe and some dynamite who doesn't have a company, who doesn't have safety equipment, who doesn't have a license, which is the big thing. The government in Afghanistan is supposed to register all the different mines and take tax income and make sure it's not going to the Taliban, stuff like that, right? But because it's really, there's not much actual government oversight in Afghanistan and people are just trying to make a little bit of cash, there's lots of guys who are going out literally with some dynamite and getting some minerals. And they might have to pay off the local warlords, or they might just be poisoning the local streams. I mean, there's all sorts of bad things that can happen, or they might be using child labor. And all those things kind of are risks of artisanal mining, which is just, again, it's the local mining.
And this also gets complicated because these are like government-backed militias who are doing this mining and been given the mining equipment, but according to Afghan law, it is illegal for anyone associated with the government to have a mining contract.
Yes,
correct. So, but that
correct.
was not the case in this matter, as you might imagine.
Yeah, no, they were buying from who knows where, likely Taliban mines, and because again these things, the little secret of war also is that all the stated public enemies are still quietly doing business with each other. Whether you're talking Iraq with different Iranian-backed militias or Afghanistan with the Taliban, people are buying. People all at the commander level, everyone kind of has lines of communication open, especially on the business side.
Well, because it's like a huge country and like vast swaths of it are completely under the control of the Taliban. But if the minerals are there, or opium to be processed into heroin, like you mentioned, another very important, expensive resource there, you got to buy it from someone to get it to market, right? And the people you're buying it from are the ones you're officially at war with. But how does the president of Afghanistan and his brother factor into this?
So, like you mentioned, that mining project that was done by this task force and the special forces guys, it got busted up in 2013 because it was illegal. But the people behind it didn't give up. So the woman I mentioned, Emily Scott King, her husband, and some other of the special forces guys, they all ended up in the private sector. And they're part of this they're part of a consultancy called Global Venture. And Global Venture was then hired by a military contractor called SOS International. And this company is basically, I view it as a cutout for General Petraeus' office. It's got a bunch of his former deputies on board, and it's kind of an upstart military contractor, but it's very well connected in the military contracting world and making a ton of money. And they brought this plan that they had to crush minerals to this company, SOS International, or they go by SOSI. And the problem was, again, it's all illegal. So how do you fix that? Another special forces guy had an idea. He wrote actually a whole thesis that we found on, his name was Ryan Hartwig. He wrote a thesis about how special forces should be involved in Afghan mining and how to do it right. And he suggested, well, you got to give some sort of benefit to the political leaders. And that appears to be what SOSI did. It took 2 years, but we found a variety of evidence. And the key piece, and this is the really hard part, they incorporated their business deal in the United Arab Emirates, which is a very secretive business country. They have lots of tax havens and secrecy jurisdictions. And of course, so they hid the ownership of their company in there. But we managed to pull a document out of there that showed that the brother of the Afghan president had 20% of the company that these guys were working on this mining project with. And then at the end of 2019, this connection appears to have come through. The Afghan president signed off on 2 specific special rights for this military contractor, SOSI. they are allowed to purchase minerals that were locally mined in 6 Afghan provinces, including Kunar, the one that this whole thing started in. And they're also allowed to buy over 20,000 tons of chromite that had been locally mined that somehow, I guess through a confiscation maybe, the government had in its possession. So these rights, again, they're not legal under Afghan law. This is all done extra legally. And it is benefiting the president's brother, which, again, violates, at least for the companies, American law and probably Afghan law.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be a story about international corruption and resource extraction if there weren't also fail sons and fail nephews involved in this corruption, because you have here Sultan Ghani, who is the president's nephew, who got a whole bunch of and some other fail. They got like make work jobs in DC think tanks and shit like that, the same way everyone else does.
Yeah, so the president's nephew actually worked for SOSI. The funny thing about him, I heard he went by G Money in high school.
G Money?
Okay. G Money. That was one of the little things I picked up when working on this. But he worked for about 2 months for SOSI, and that was actually how I originally got tipped off. As a SOSI employee told me, hey, because I've been asking about Iraq, and they said, also SOSI is corrupt in Iraq, by the way. So they said, by the way, the president of Afghanistan's nephew worked for us. And I was like, what? And so basically they said this was likely part of making the deal, was that not only are you cutting him in, we'll give your son an internship just to sweeten things up so he gets something on his resume. That was what the speculation was at SOSI.
Speaking of destroying Iraq, you mentioned that Paul Wolfowitz is also on the board of SOSI as well. I mean,
and he's probably the biggest name.
So I mean, so if SOSI is a cutout for the Department of Defense, and you quote people in the article who say that it's an open secret that SOSI is just like shorthand for the Pentagon or the DoD.
Yeah.
From their perspective, I mean, they see the writing on the wall. Like they know they're headed for the exit. Like, how is SOSI and all the money associated with mining a way for them to continue to make money off of this, or a way to continue what would otherwise be their policy had they not had to officially leave the country?
I think so. So I kind of want to go in 2 directions in this. The short answer on mining specifically is mining is kind of what's called a J-curve industry. So you start off really slow, where you're losing money. Where you're building the factories, where you're figuring out where the minerals are, and then suddenly you make a ton of money, and that's kind of the end of the J. So theoretically, they could be making, in a couple years, they might be making bank off this. Now, the other answer to this actually is going to go to Iraq, because I've done a bunch of work on SOSI in Iraq, and they have a history of essentially not only making money on the public side, but on the private side. Where they were, they basically made a deal with a former president of Iraq, Nouri al-Maliki, who of course was propped up by the U.S. government, the CIA, and actually Joe Biden personally, and was largely responsible for the fall of northern Iraq to ISIS through his kind of sectarian violence and death squads. But anyway, so they made a deal with him where they got control of one of the largest military bases in Iraq. It was called Camp Taji, and they were only kicked out last year after close to a decade. And they had a memo from the prime minister that said only SOSI can access this base. It's their land. And so every other company that wanted to access that base had to pay SOSI. And SOSI essentially was running a hotel. And because of that, it appears they actually got very invested in other kind of commercial businesses. There's stories about them running not just the base as a hotel, but actually a large hotel in Baghdad. And now they were apparently printing money, like hundreds of millions of dollars through these businesses, and have been trying to diversify into various other cybersecurity intelligence fields also. So it's kind of become a monster.
You quote an anti-corruption expert in your piece who says, intelligence and special forces do what it takes to achieve their mission. Their military mission may have ended, but these guys may have thought they could make a ton of money and advance our national security at the same time. I mean, making a ton of money, I mean, that's obvious what's going on here, but how do they see this as advancing our national security when they're, essentially buying chromite from Taliban-controlled artisanal mines?
So this, I'm going to go back to this woman, Emily Scott King, because she did an interview for a conference on special forces in 2019 that was fairly revealing. She said basically that this is a way to reintegrate the Taliban into Afghan society by mining, where basically you can have local commanders running mines and processing centers in their chain of command the way they're used to, and this can be used to kind of create peace. It was kind of the original idea of the task force in the first place, which is we end the war by getting buy-in from all the people who are fighting into making money instead of fighting, or at least pinch off some of their support. That's the theory behind all of this.
And I mean, I guess like, and there's this larger idea of like, okay, so like Joe Biden says like the Afghanistan war is officially over. The U.S. military is pulling out. But like, as with all these things, if you read the fine print, it makes clear that like certain operational functioning and certain aspects of what would be done by the U.S. military is in some small way going to still be handled by military contractors.
Yeah.
And is that what we're talking about here is like ensuring that these minerals come to market and that like are being sold to, I assume, Western and American corporations?
So in terms of where it's being sold, we've heard rumors of Canada. And there seems to be some evidence that presumably it's also going to China through Pakistan because that's a big market for chromite. In terms of staying in Afghanistan, though, it's an interesting question because what will likely happen is we'll kind of see the Iraq model, where in Iraq you have bases that are the contracts are facilitated by the local government. So in Iraq, it's by the Iraqi government, where they pick out a contractor and they theoretically give the U.S. some money to handle it, and the U.S. will do all the contracting side of it and send in people to be guards, to do laundry, to be janitors, to supply the oil, all that kind of stuff, or the fuel for like the fighter jets, and that will all be handled by, for the most part, American companies for the Afghan, or for in that case the Iraqi military, and presumably it will continue happening in Afghanistan even with the pullout of the U.S. And we know there's going to be an interest because there will be unacknowledged special forces in Afghanistan. We're pulling out the conventional occupation, but the U.S. is still going to have drone bases and kind of hunter-killer teams that are operating there, presumably. And they're going to need some sort of support. And again, if you're an American politician, right, it sucks when you have to say soldiers are dying. It's pretty easy to brush away a contractor dying. And so it lets them avoid accountability. And this is, I'm afraid, is transitioning to that kind of status quo, another full-on shadow war, which is the easiest thing for a politician.
I mean, you mentioned her before, but like sort of a main character in this piece is this woman, Emily Scott King. And like, how do you find her to be like an example of like the way she sees herself as sort of almost like a cowboy or sort of a Lawrence of Arabia style figure?
It seems like that. I mean, she calls herself a mining futurist, and what I'd heard from her colleagues is basically that she rose very fast, so that she was, for example, briefing Petraeus, and was kind of basically she was put in charge of all the mining by this task force, and it does seem like they decided that they really like what they were. Again, they were doing good and they're making money as they saw it, right? And so why stop when this task force gets shut down? Why not get the Afghan president on board? And it's impressive. I mean, her Rolodex is very clearly large, and you have to ask, how did she get that?
So what is Southern Development? Like, that's another one of these like sort of umbrella companies involved in like the mining industry in Afghanistan?
Yeah, so Southern Development, or it also went by SODEVCO, was the subsidiary that was used as a cutout for this project by this military contractor, SOSI. It was originally owned by the Afghan president's brother. We found archival documents back to 2005 showing that. But sometime around 2013, and this is kind of funny, the Afghan president today and his brother ran in the same election for president. And around that time, the brother's name was stripped from this company, and it just kind of went dark. The public records in Afghanistan only show SOSI today. And I was told basically it was removed to avoid causing any embarrassment due to the politics. But again, the documents we found in the United Arab Emirates show that the brother still owns 20%.
How did you get onto this story to begin with? I mean, you mentioned briefly it was like you were looking into Iraq at the time, but like, what does this story say to you, like overall, about the like 20 plus years of the American military's occupation of Afghanistan?
I mean, so getting on the story, it's really, it is the broader point for me, which is like, and I know I'm talking to an audience that thinks war is a scam, but it's really worse than you can even know. Which is, it's like I said, at the command level, it's entirely driven by money. And you can talk about the individual grunts, the troops on each side who might be driven by ideology, but the leadership is all cashing out. So you've got, for example, all these military contractors are filled with 3-star and 4-star generals who've had to negotiate with different politicians in these countries and different militia leaders. And they get out, they sign up with a military contractor, and they call up their old contacts and say, hey, can you cut me a deal on transporting fuel through Iraq or Afghanistan, right? And you get 50%, I get 50%, and the militias don't attack us. And of course, you're enriching the same people you're fighting, who then, at the commander level, have a motivation to continue fighting. I mean, like I know stories about people who were importing Humvees in Iraq, about this company out of southern Iraq, and all the Humvees were getting, all their trucks were getting blown up until they hired the local militia. And then the militia delivered all the Humvees, and they never got blown up until the next day when they're under the control of the military. And then that creates more demand for another delivery and another delivery. And eventually the militia leader who was doing the transport retired to Dubai with the ex-military guys from the US who also made a ton of money. And now they're all drinking buddies despite being on opposite sides of the war. And they all got massively rich.
So I mean, yeah, like it's the classic war is a racket thing, right?
Yes.
Like I mean, aside from most of the people dying in it, like it's just everyone on both sides they're getting paid because they're like, look, we have the skills, we're here, like no one else is doing this job, like I might as well, sort of just feather my nest for when I get out of the military, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd bankrupt Dick Cheney if we hadn't relied on military contractors. So,
but like, yeah, I mean, I guess like, I mean, looking to the future as like this war officially winds down, and like how the war on terrorism is sort of faded from the American consciousness, but like our military is very much engaged in like all over the world. It like just like in terms of how contracting has become part of the American way of making war and like how the Pentagon functions. Yeah,
no, it really has, and it's just an easy way for the U.S. to avoid I mean. America, A, likes capitalism, B, we like war profiteering, and C, our politicians don't like actually taking responsibility for things. And military contractors provide all those things.
But I mean, and it also provides a way for essentially the function of a war to continue, i.e., like lining everyone's pockets without any of the news stories about like how horrible it is that a war has lasted 25 years, or like someone's kid is fighting in the same war that their dad died in, or whatever.
Exactly. You can say it's over. And it is. I mean, the soldiers are mostly gone. I mean, it's just and then you can instead hire out some ex-apartheid, because this is the other thing that's kind of fascinating. You can hire out an ex-apartheid mercenary from South Africa who is still really bitter and racist to go do guard duty instead of paying an American soldier to do that, or risking an American soldier dying. So that's what we do now instead.
And if they do anything fucked up that makes the headlines, then you're just like, well, that's not us.
Yep.
That's just some guy we hired.
Yep. And I mean, and the depressing thing also about it making the headlines, like this story was so hard to pitch. I tried about 40 different editors before we found a home for it. No one really cared. I was told in the process that this was not vital. So it really, people aren't interested in the war, and they're even less interested in the kind of the shadow war that comes after.
Well, Zack Kopplin, I want to thank you for the piece and your investigation into this. If people want to read it, the link will be in the show description. But if they would like to read more of your reporting, where should they go?
So I post most of it on my Twitter because, again, I work for an organization called the Government Accountability Project, which is a whistleblower group. But we don't publish ourselves, so it's kind of scattered around. I've done a lot for a bunch of different outlets. So the easiest thing is my Twitter, because that's where I have it all on it. I don't have unfortunately, a centralized database of stories.
Well, the link to your Twitter and the link to this article about corruption in the Afghan mining contracting will be in the show description. So I'd just like to say thank you, Zack Kopplin, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It's fun.
Hey, what's up, everybody? So would it surprise you to learn that the boys did like 20 more minutes of riffs and goofs about zoos and animals and which types of apes are which types of guys during the zoo segment earlier? Well, they did, and I felt the episode, kind of flowed a little better to put the news stuff and interview up top, and then put this this animal segment back here. So just kind of popping in right now to say that that's what you're about to hear, because there's not really an intro or an outro or any context for this. So here's more zoo talk. Oh, and also while I'm here, I haven't mentioned the Frequency Festival in a week. So why don't you go get tickets for that? Frequency.live, FRQNCY.live, our live streaming festival appearance on June 5th. I think we're going to have some cool stuff announced about that soon. I just had a talk with our set designer who's going to be like building a stage for this thing. There's going to be like sets and shit and lighting design and all that crap. It's going to be very cool. So get your tickets now for our live streaming festival performance on June 5th at Frequency, FRQNCY.live. And now back to the Dry Boys with more on those wonderful animals we all know and love.
Animals are hairy. They say they don't need money. They like to laugh at people. They set no bad example. They think they know what's best. They're making a laugh at me.
I have two interesting animal facts that I learned at the zoo that I'd like to share with our audience. The first being the largest mammalian predator species. The largest mammalian predator species, making it like an apex predator, on the island of Madagascar, which is an enormous island. I mean, just massive, like in very distinct ecosystem. The largest mammalian predator is about the size of my cat Marty.
Yeah, I think Marty's actually like bigger.
They're like the same size and weight. It is known as the fossa, which is an interesting combination of cat and dog. But while we were there, Felix kind of blew me away, as he normally does with the thoughts that he has. But he came up with he said that all mammal species, it's a new way of categorizing mammalian species. And he said that all mammal species can be broken down into three categories: dog, cat, or person.
Yeah, no, that's
like,
it.
Goddamn, he's right again.
Yeah,
he's right
true.
again.
Like, you don't think it holds up, but like a tapir is like, that's like a dog. Okay, a lemur, that's a guy. Like, all primates are guys or people.
I mean, the problem is, like, the hooved mammals, it becomes a little bit more difficult to suss
Dogs.
out. Dog.
Yeah, no, okay, so like...
Do you think they're sort of cat-like, though?
Horses are dogs for sure.
Yeah, a horse and a Labrador is the exact same personality. Like, a zebra might be a cat.
Who's a cat? Like, who's a cat in the cat phylum there?
Zebras, because like I found out...
Yeah, zebras
they're
are cats, undomesticated.
Yeah,
and the
I think a lot of
deadliest zoo animal. They kill
they are.
zookeepers every year.
They injure and kill more zookeepers than any other animal. See, I think a lot of the deer species are very cat-like, and
Yeah, I
they're
agree with
kind
that.
of furtive and quick and just sort of sort of skittering about.
Yeah,
Obviously the big cats. I mean, they're cats. It's in the name. You
I think
see that there.
there are actually more cats than dogs. Like a red panda is a cat.
Is what's a capybara?
That's a dog.
I would say it's a person.
A raccoon
person.
is a cat, right?
No, I say person. I say capybara are people.
Ah.
Guy.
Yeah, because they're like interested in every species like a person would be.
Yeah, like if bears are guys, then capybaras are guys.
Yeah, bears are absolutely people.
My second animal fact, though, I'll share this with you. Felix and I were treated to a very up close and personal view of two hyenas, which if you've never seen them up close, they're enormous. They're
so
terrifying.
Yeah,
they're terrifying. They are so big. And the little animal fact I learned about them is that they have the strongest jaws of any mammal, and their bite is something like 1,300 pounds of pressure per square inch. I think I've read that hyenas can gnaw through steel bars if you give them a long enough time.
yeah, they're fucking horrifying. Like that will be what comes after humans. I have an idea. It'll be like a hyena society.
Please tell them that I am God.
Look, you can say what you want about hyenas. They might look scary. They might have incredibly strong jaws, but They make a great open mic audience.
Yeah.
Just the very easy laughers.
Yeah, no, they like keep the pace. They're like how like Stav ups the atmosphere on Come Town. Yeah.
Also underrated African wild dogs. Not as big or menacing as hyenas, but they're very
Those are
cool
beautiful.
looking, very beautiful animals. Very impressive to look at.
That's what I like about like species like that. Like obviously like you primarily when you think about going to the zoo, you're like, oh, I want to see the gorillas, I want to see the tapirs. But then like it's cool seeing things that are just like a dog or a cat, but they're like more fucked up and their ears are round. For like the like and it's like, oh, okay. I can see where these two things split off.
Capuchin monkeys, we saw some of those. Those are good.
Those are beautiful.
Those are very, very good. Those are obviously, guy person.
Yeah.
100%.
The bird house was fucking sick.
There were some very good birds in there. Some just like some people forget I forget how big parrots are sometimes.
Oh
too.
man, they're giant.
They're huge.
Parrots are that's what I love about the birdhouse is that it's like you have parrots who are like that's a guy. Like they're very smart. Like a lot of birds
Flamingos are guys too.
Yeah. Crows, guys. Like
crows
a lot
are
of
100% guys.
Yeah, they're all really smart. But then like you have like birds who are just like bugs. Like they're so fucking dumb. And it's like they don't look that different from the smart birds. Which is, I guess,
like,
a lot like people. Like, if you were another animal, like trying to figure out who's a really smart person and who's really stupid, it's like you wouldn't really be able to tell by appearance. Like they probably know, but we don't.
Another thing Felix said to me at the zoo that stuck with me for the last couple of days is we were coming out of the we were coming off the experience of watching these two gorillas fight with each other, which is like for Felix and myself almost like a spiritual experience seeing that up close. And I was like, I know I don't need to convince anyone, but if like you find yourself skeptical of like the theory of Darwinian evolution, like just look at any ape and try to tell me that that's like not pretty much identical to a person. And Felix just said, yeah, when I look at chimps, I just see an evil person.
That's what, like, you guys know my like unified theory of primates, right?
I know.
I'm not sure if we do.
Every primate contains like an element of humanity. And it's
okay, interesting.
Like orangutans represent like a sort of scientific curiosity. Gibbons express like a type of fun loving and seeking of like fun and enjoyment and laughter. Gorillas exemplify like a true love of family that you don't see in every mammal species. And chimps represent evil, being smart and evil.
Yeah, they're the intellect unrestrained.
Yeah,
well, no, I mean,
just
like
put to the task of killing each other and dominating.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like I just like I was thinking of like chimps, and it's just like it's just like a person if they were not burdened by knowledge of like sin and sort of self-awareness.
Yeah,
like
just pure aggression.
But they
pure tool wielding aggression without any humanity.
But they can be nice. Like there are like they can be like there's that video that chimp like very gently feeding a turtle. But it's like I feel like you have to like kind of train them to be that
Okay,
way.
but what about the chill horny chimps, the bonobos?
Yeah, bonobos are horny humans. They're sex nerds.
They're sex nerds. So they're not evil.
They can be evil. They can be evil,
but they're not as essentially evil as chimps because
no,
they also can get things out through their weird sex games.
It's interesting because it's like there's all this evidence of like orangutans and lar gibbons, like two not very territorial by primate standards subspecies, and they like. Yeah, there's all these videos of gibbons going over to where tapirs are and like grooming them and being like, "Oh, what's this thing? This is awesome." Or like if you put an orangutan and gibbons in the same place, like the orangutan will just like very gently shadow the gibbon because he'll be like, "Oh, this thing's awesome." Like, what's up with you? And it's like a chimp would just like enslave those things.
Yes.
Kill them.
Just starts sharpening a stick immediately.
This is funny. On the day we went to the zoo, I saw a Twitter post that was like a screenshot of a Facebook page of someone who works at a zoo, and they were like, bad news today. We had to shut down the baboon exhibit because one of our females just sort of like miscarried and had a stillbirth, and the entire troop is grieving. And by grieving, I mean they're tearing up the stillborn infant and throwing its body parts at each other.
Yeah. I want to defend the baboons. I feel like that maybe has its own meaning to them. And
Yeah.
it's like,
What do baboons represent?
Scary people.
yeah.
Oh yeah, like people who look scary but are actually the kindest.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Facebook
Or they
people?
could just be they could just rip your face off. I mean, it's
That's
just
true.
like they're just scary
Facebook
individuals.
Facebook guys.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, baboons, like on baboon Facebook, it's like when I get pissed, I get really quiet, and that's when you have to watch out.
I get really quiet, but my ass gets really red. So you can always
Yeah.
my genitals and asshole get inflamed.
When you see them and they've got like their asshole just flapping behind them like a fucking whoopee cushion attached to their butt, it's gross. They're gross. Baboons are gross. I'm sorry.
That's what happens when I see someone disrespecting the flag or kneeling for the national anthem. My asshole just sort of like becomes like a
It
fucking
just prolapses
it
completely.
just prolapses and it just starts advertising to everyone.
That's why they're guys, because like a really gross looking person is like uniquely gross to you in this way, like as a person that
That's
another
a good
animal
point.
can't
They have
really
a
be.
That's like you're repulsed by them, not the way you'd be repulsed by an animal.
Yeah. Like
if you saw a person like just really messed up and you had to avoid looking at them.
yeah, if you see like a dirty, fucked up, disgusting dog like Major Biden, it's like you can go on your day.
Because it's a dog.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
but like a Largibbon. Largibbons are like handsome.
Yes.
They're like
yeah,
beautiful.
they're
I agree
gorgeous.
completely.
They're
Yeah.
gorgeous.
And
They're
of course,
gorgeous.
a silverback is
Yes.
one of the biggest hunks
Yeah.
in the universe.
Yeah, enchanting. They have like they're like models. They have like beautiful cheekbones and shit.
Just real quick, as long as we're talking about animal news, you brought up Major Biden. Did you guys see that they're getting a cat for the White House?
Yes.
Getting a cat is going to chill out the dog.
Major's gonna have a
And
great
if
lunch.
if I've studied cartoons, I know how this is going to end, folks.
I think I know how they're gonna deal with Major Biden by having Obama show up for Thanksgiving, and then they'll make dinner.
That's gonna be a
'Cause these
great
dogs.
Jen Psaki clapback moment when like they get the cat, then like a month later they're like, "We've never had a cat. What are you talking
What
about?"
are you talking about?
Yeah.
She'll just be like Steve Ducey's son will just be like, "Nah, what happened to the cat? Come on, really?" And then she'll just sort of like purse her lips and be like, "We're focused on not cat related issues.
We've moved on from the cat question.
We've moved on from the cat." Okay.
I will have to circle back on that one. That's an excellent question. Oh, such an important question. We will circle back with you, and we'll circle back with you. It's an interesting question, but we'll circle back.
That cat is like Major's just gonna like daintily open the carrier cage and just swallow him whole like an anaconda. That poor cat.
Like when you first get cats in a new space, they'll they're very skittish. They'll run to like some hidden corner of the house and just sort of stay there for like a week or whatever until they get their bearings. They're gonna open up the like the carrying case, the little cage that the cat comes in. The cat is gonna just dart out like through a door into the open mouth of Major. It's just like going into a door, but you're going into the stomach of a dog.
Yeah. No, that's like there hasn't been a lot of Major news. Do you think they're like drugging him?
I honestly think that they're replacing him with some sort of Boston Dynamics device.
Yeah. That was like Biden having a filthy
A big shitty dog that he can't fuck. That's so perfect.
That's why he won.
Like this, because yes, that is an American relatable thing. That is wildly more relatable than anything Trump has ever said or done. He's okay. He's a good guy while he's shitting on your fucking lap.
That's such an American thing to have just like the worst dog in the world and to be like, he's
Having
actually
no interest
really
in, like,
smart.
making it less bad and gross. And just expecting everybody to put up with it because it's like charming.
Yeah, he's like he jumps up on you and his like untrimmed claws like just pierce through your stomach and it's like, oh, he loves people. He loves you.
Pissing on the Resolute desk. Ah, that's our boy.
Well, I gotta say, dog piss on the Resolute test would be a lot easier to deal with than cat piss, which is like xenomorph blood. If you've ever encountered it, it is the most toxic substance known to man. It is awful. It is like it will permanently stain any hardwood floor it comes into contact with. I mean, not like I have any security deposits still outstanding because of issues like that or anything. My cats are very well behaved.
To all future renters.
All right. So that was the Chapo Zoo report. Hopefully, we'll be visiting some more zoos in the future, and we'll give you some more animal news coming through. But I think it's good to check in on the animals, just what they're up to. It's fascinating shit.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like zoos are like obviously it's like kind of like on the whole like suboptimal because it's like a lot of them like shouldn't live in zoos, but for a lot of animals like. Animals that live in zoos, like a lot of the times they've been like rejected by their mom or like they couldn't make it in whatever conservatory they were in.
They couldn't hack it.
Yeah.
They got fired.
And it's like
they got fired from nature.
That's like they're usually run by conservation societies and it's like I mean, you gotta fund a conservation society somehow because it's like that was the other thing we were talking about at the zoo. Like if Bill Gates or like Jeff Bezos, like if they wanted to, in like an afternoon, they could like kill everyone who's poaching elephants. Like they could, like everyone who like every rich guy who like hunts elephants and shit. They could just
like Wayne LaPierre.
Yeah,
like they could put a bounty.
God.
Like they could have
One
some
of the
sort of
most
crowdsourced bounty.
Stories I've ever read in my life.
Yeah, no, that story put me into the
I
dark
honestly
place.
think that should be a death penalty offense.
Yeah, you're not
like,
a
for
part
serious.
of this
I honestly
project.
100% believe that there should be no capital punishment for anyone committing a crime against another person. But there are certain classes of animals that I think you have to have a death penalty for killing to make the point.
Elephant,
the
great
sacred
ape.
deer, and elephants are number one on the list.
Elephants are like if you see an elephant, you're like that would be cool to kill that thing.
Yeah,
It's
you're a monster.
Yeah, you're fucked up. You're so fucked up.
You cannot function among us as anything other than a fucking poison, as a carcinogen.
Yeah. But like
that story in particular, where like they couldn't even kill it, and they had to shoot.
Yeah,
it
he could.
10
Like
times.
big bad NRA guy takes 3 shots, gets knocked on his ass by the recoil, and the fucking guide has to finish it off. Like a cartoon, you wouldn't do that. It would be too on the nose to have the NRA guy be a fucking pussy who needs somebody to tie down an elephant, and even then can't finish the job.
No, we were just talking about like the sort of like the sense of just like absolute cosmic injustice that like Don Jr. could go to Africa and kill an elephant. Like that, that those two beings exist on this universe, like perceiving, like being aware of being alive, and one of them gets to kill the other one and like cut off its tail for a photo is. I'm sorry, like there's no God in like a world where that can happen.
Yeah. Like like the elephant is like more self-cognizant than Don Jr.
100%.
Yeah.
Has deeper emotional connections to its family.
But like what should happen is like when there's like a George Soros or Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, like someone with like tens of billions of dollars, right? Their thing should be like they all protect a different animal. And like, you know, for people who have to like get involved in the poaching industry in those countries, it's like, yeah, it's a bad situation, but it's like, yeah, if you have $70 billion, you can take care of that. And then
that's
like,
the thing. You don't even have to make it like an armed force. How about you just economically develop those areas?
Yeah, and
so that people don't even have to think to do it. And then you also have significant bump up security too.
And then the rich guys who hunt them, it's like, okay, Wayne LaPierre than Bill Gates. Who's like higher in the NWO? Bill Gates is like the cardinal of the NWO. Wayne LaPierre is no one.
He's nothing. He's a pig.
Yeah. Bill Gates
is as meaningful as an Afghan poppy farmer. They could wipe him off the planet with a drone strike in an afternoon. No one would care.
Yeah, but like they're not doing that because they're bad.
Well, yeah,
that's the worst thing they do.
It would be to do something worse because they can't do anything but evil.
So zoos exist to like raise money for conservation and like get people interested in animals. I wish there were other ways to do it, but yeah, no, I mean conservation. You should see like the destiny and the duty of humans to protect all the glories of nature, or at least stop fucking destroying it.
Yeah, stop fucking just like.
I just think if you, if you're one of these guys like Wayne LaPierre or like a dentist that pays money to like go on like a big game safari and essentially just be driven up to like a sleeping leopard and then blow its brains out. Like I like if you're paying money to do that and going like in country on one of these like safari hunts, I think you should have to like understand that like while you are hunting or stalking this animal, like you are being stalked by like a team of highly trained killers. Highly trained ex-military
Guess it was the most
operatives.
dangerous game after all.
Well, that's like a great thing you can do with like Navy SEALs and shit. Is like not even give them the context of it. Just like they are stalking the hunters, and it's like you can tell them whatever stupid thing.
Yeah, they're in Al Qaeda.
Yeah, they're in Al Qaeda. These guys work for Chrissy Teigen and John Legend.
Yeah, like if they're Q dipshits, it's like, yeah, these guys are the cabal. They're the adrenochrome people.
Yeah, and it's like, and you'd be pretty much right.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
But
and there's another thing, another great idea.
You solve so many problems at once with our system.
And and like Felix and I thought like this would be a great way to deal with all of these like mercenary types and like keep them employed, but like crucially out of the United States of America for the rest of their life, but like not killing people. Because like Wayne LaPierre is not a person, but you just keep them over there and you airdrop them like protein shakes and Joe Rogan podcast episodes, and they'll be happy. They're loving it. They're loving it.
They can still go on Facebook.
Yeah,
they can still
post
insane arguments, but it's like their job is to make sure rich guys don't kill elephants or like whatever other amazing species.
Or like whatever. There has to be like sort of like a pay some sort of like paycheck imposed a price tag.
There's got to be a price tag.
On doing. There's got to be a price tag, and I think just like all of the sort of the canopy of like ex-military mercenary guys, I think can be put to work. Just sort of being like having some sort of crowdsourced bounty on elephant killers out there in the world.
Yeah, and this gives me no pleasure to take something away from the Greeks, but sorry, they would be used to protect octopuses from you. Like they're too smart. I'm sorry, you can't do it. Octopus, like after humanity, it's going to be a society run by octopuses.
That's true. The cephalopods will inherit the earth.
Yeah. No, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the animal news. I think we should call this episode "We Went to a Zoo."
Yeah.
We bought part of a zoo.